Good morning again from me. I'm John, the pastor, and this is the morning service at Bearsden Baptist Church, and you're most welcome to join us for the next hour or so. We have the privilege and blessing of having a guest speaker, Thomas Dean, the pastor from Stenhouse Baptist Church, who did grow up in the church, and I'll say a little bit more about that later on. He's going to be speaking on loving the poor, which he and his congregation do over there in Edinburgh. And just as we kind of get into that theme, let me share from Luke chapter 4, verse 14. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread through the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he'd been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then Jesus rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." Now, just as Jesus went back to the town that he grew up in, the same is true for Thomas today, for he grew up in Bearsden, our own town here. We're going to hear as well today from Rhona Steven, one of the deacons, who's going to share about the plans for a Wellbeing cafe within our barista cafe. And our prayers are going to be led for us by Ruth Benson. But before we have our first song, which will be led by Peter and Karen, and is one they've newly recorded called So Will I. We're going to spend a moment in prayer. So let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the good things that you give us. You have given us this wonderful planet to live on. You give us life. You sent Jesus, and you have given us faith, that possibility of connecting with you through him, being filled with your Holy Spirit, and enjoying life in all its fullness. Lord, may we connect with just such a life today, but may we be challenged too in terms of how we minister from our faith and from the blessings we have received to others. Speak to us through Rhona, through Ruth, through Thomas, and through the different songs that we're going to enjoy today. And we lift these prayers to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, over to Peter and to Karen.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star is a signifier of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. So will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. Ooh. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls shy, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. You chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. like you would again 100 billion times. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Good morning. Around 1 in 4 people are estimated to be affected by mental health problems in Scotland in any one year. This has a considerable personal impact on individuals and their families. Loneliness and social isolation act only to worsen people's distress. This past year has been so very difficult for so many people, and the number of people suffering is likely to far exceed survey results. Recently, a group of us at Bearsden Baptist Church have been inspired by Ruth, a church leader in Nottingham, who from her own personal struggles started the Renew Wellbeing charity, which aims to provide quiet, shared, cafe-like spaces in our local communities to renew well-being. Places not where we seek to fix people, but where people are simply accepted and acknowledged for who they are, and where it is okay not to be okay. We hope to start such a cafe soon, beginning with 1 day a week and associated with the barista. These spaces are run on 3 basic principles: being present, being prayerful, and being in partnership. This means that people can enjoy tea, coffee, cake and chat, or engage in a hobby or activity of their choice, but equally they can simply sit quietly on their own. However, there will be a gentle rhythm of prayer alongside this. Specific times of very simple prayer, which people can be part of if they choose. Praying simple prayers with and not for people. We will also work in partnership with local mental health services, to which we can direct people if they need professional help. In Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Please do pray for the success of this venture. And if anyone is interested in volunteering or would like more information, please don't hesitate to contact Jill Morrison or myself. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. Let's pray. Lord, I just want to thank you so much that we are able to gather for church in this way, that technology has allowed us to meet together every week since this pandemic started nearly 1 year ago. And as much as it's not exactly what we would want, it's not the ideal situation, we are still able to spend time with each other in this way, to spend time with you, to worship you and to hear your word. And I just want to thank you for that, and thank you for all of the leaders in church and the people that have made that possible and made that happen every week. I just want to pray for the leaders of our country as they're making decisions to start easing out of the pandemic, and start trying to tentatively give people deadlines for when things could maybe start opening up. It's difficult to hear still that there's no definitive, this is it and this is when things are going to happen, but I just thank you, Lord, that we have leaders that are making plans, that are trying really hard to have an ABC of what's going to happen. And I just ask that you'll give them wisdom, that you will bless them, Lord, and that you will help shoulder this enormous burden that they have got to face right now, Lord. I just want to pray for people that are disproportionately struggling with the impact of this pandemic, Lord. There are so many poor people that are just without so much, without security, without safety, without knowing what's going to happen next, Lord. And I just pray for the work of charities such as Glasgow City Mission that are working with the homeless people of Glasgow, Lord, and just trying to give them hope and food and comfort and safety and security and somebody to talk to. And there's so many other worthwhile charities, Lord, that are trying so hard to mitigate what's life been like before the pandemic, Lord, but the impact of what's happened during the pandemic as well. We just pray for Don and Lorna and Nick and Kate in South Africa and the ties that they have to communities out there, Lord, where there's just people just struggling. They just don't even know where their next meal's coming from, Lord, and it's so out with the realms of our understanding, Lord. We just pray for Donna, Lorna and Nick and Kate that you'll give them wisdom, that you will keep them safe, Lord, in situations which could possibly not be safe sometimes. We just pray that you will help them as they are building up relationships, that they are seeking to equip people and empower people and not just give them things, but give them tools for life, Lord, give them skills. And we just want to thank you for the people that they know and the relationships they have built, Lord, and the hope that they are planting in those communities. We also want to pray, Lord, for those that are poor in spirit and mood, that we understand that this pandemic doesn't just have a financial burden for people, Lord, but a huge mental health ramifications for so many people who are feeling lonely, or people that are maybe feeling very confined within their own homes, or people that are just really struggling to handle the lack of routine, the lack of being able to go out and see people, Lord. There's so much that's been so hard, but we just want to thank you for things like the Wellbeing Cafe that is hopefully going to start up in Benson Baptist Church, and the ties that's going to have to mental health charities, and again just the beacon of hope that is going to be within our own community, Lord. I just pray that has the volunteers that it needs to run, that it really meets the need in the community, Lord, that people hear about it and want to be a part of it and want to see what it's about. And as much as we don't wish struggle on anybody, Lord, I thank you that there are some people within our community that are maybe getting some perspective on life and what it means and what it looks like and what they want it to look like, and are reaching out for links into churches, Lord. And we just pray that you will meet them at the threshold, Lord, that as they reach out, that you will reach back, and that you will put people in their place to just show them love, unconditional love, and the safety and security and the answers that they're looking for. We just want to thank you so much that we have a fellowship that is so keen to be within our community, Lord, and to help other people. And I just pray that as this year, as we have no clue what this year looks like, Lord, that you will help people to know exactly where they're meant to be, what they're meant to be doing, and to reach out to those that are struggling. We just want to thank you again that we have this platform, that we can meet together, that we can have fellowship together, Lord. And I just pray that it won't be long before we can do this again in person. Amen.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy
my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above.
As I said earlier, it is a real privilege and joy to have Thomas here sharing a message just this week about his experience and that of his congregation in a socially deprived area within Edinburgh. Thomas, of course, as he will say, grew up in Bearsden, went to Douglas Academy to pursue his musical interests. One of the big things that I remember about Thomas is his baptismal service in February 2000. We're talking 21 years ago. He was baptized along with his older brother Jonathan, our son Jamie, and Kate Christie. We were all up in the upstairs old sanctuary, packed to the gunnels. What an exciting service that was. But we're trusting for a great message from you, Thomas, today. So over to you now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas. There's probably a lot of you I haven't met. I was actually part of Benson Baptist I've done my homework at around 1994 to 2005, which feels like a long, long time ago. Age 7 to 18, a glorious 11 years. And I haven't really been back much since, actually, and that's not because I left in disgrace, and I haven't stolen anything or anything, but I've just been working at churches in Edinburgh ever since, really, and have been pretty much busy every Sunday, so please don't be offended. But by way of introduction, I lead a small church in West Edinburgh. It's kind of like a church plant, but we kind of planted a new church into an existing church. And I lead alongside my wife, Claudia, who is a lawyer coming to the end of her traineeship. It's just the two of us at the moment, but we are actually expecting to be joined by a very small person in August, which is tremendously exciting. And we live on a council estate called Stenhouse, which we love. And our church is very much committed to sharing our lives and our faith with our neighbours here in Stenhouse. So somehow, by the grace of God, we managed to sort of convince a whole bunch of our friends to come and move into this area with us. And one of the reasons that we decided to come here is because we are just a few hundred metres from Edinburgh Prison, which is just kind of over there. And it's a place that Claudia and I have felt called to minister and serve where we can in the prison and here in this local community. I just want to say before I kind of get stuck into our topic and our chat today, my time at Bearsden Baptist was really important for me. I know that you had Graham on a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still in touch with so many people, particularly lots of others from our youth group. And it is a bit scary. I'm not quite sure how it happened that so many of us are actually still heavily involved in church. Like if you look at the statistics from youth groups in the 90s, that's just not really what happens, you know. And so many of us still following Jesus in different contexts, different places around the world, or leading churches like Graham and I have been called. And I'm not sure how that happened, to be honest. I'm sure none of our youth leaders saw that coming. So thank you to all of you who made time for us and were patient with us. And whoever the youth leaders are now, keep going. Not that you want to end up with someone like me, but just to say you might be surprised what is going on beneath the surface. John's told me that you are currently in a series all about love and has asked me to speak specifically on loving the poor, which is a real privilege. It's also a little intimidating because I know that you guys will have heard from people like Kate and Nick and Don and Lorna doing amazing things in South Africa, probably a whole bunch of other people as well. I know about the link with Glasgow City Mission, and yeah. So all I'm going to do is just remind us, first and foremost, about Jesus' priority for the poor. And John is keen that we share little bits and pieces about what's happening here in Stenhouse too, so better do what my pastor tells me to do. Don't want to change an old habit. And I want to start our conversation today with this little exchange between John the Baptist and Jesus. It's going to be from Matthew 11. John was in prison. He was struggling and was beginning to have pretty significant doubts about who his cousin actually was, about who Jesus really was. Matthew 11 tells us he sent this message to Jesus: "Are you the Messiah, or should we be expecting somebody else?" And what a question for John to ask. What an important question, yeah, but also not the sort of thing you expect John the Baptist to be asking Jesus, not the sort of thing you'd expect to read in the Bible. And Jesus said in verses 4 to 6, he said, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed or blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me." It's quite the answer, isn't it? Really, quite the response, retort. John says, "Who are you? Are you the one that we've been hoping for?" And Jesus says, "Well, judge for yourself, but these are the things that I'm up to." And I do wonder, just as John probed Jesus, as he questioned him, I wonder whether the world is asking the same question of the church right now. Who are you? We are having our doubts. And Jesus pointed to signs and wonders. Jesus pointed to good news proclaimed to those on the edges. He talked about cleansed lepers. We've read about that elsewhere in the Gospels. What does the world see when it looks at us, our churches? But what do our friends see when they look at us, our lives? I think it's been fascinating seeing all the different ways that churches have responded to the pandemic. Personally, I've just found it hugely encouraging to hear so many stories of creativity and compassion, and I've been really moved by a lot of stories that I've heard. Yes, you've got engaging online and sort of quickly switching to do all that, and that's been incredible, alpha courses, etc., but also sharing hope and providing support for communities in practical ways too. And I've got no doubt that you guys have been doing some amazing stuff. But it's also been a scary time for churches, hasn't it? What if things never go back to normal? Who are we when you take away our worship services? What does it mean for us to be the people of God when we can't, or have chosen not to gather together in a certain way? Jesus said to John, "You'll know who I am because of what you see me doing." And Jesus spent his life with those on the margins. Maybe you've heard the story of Jesus really kicking off his ministry in Nazareth, his hometown. And we read in Luke chapter 4, and I'm going to just dart around a little bit today since we're kind of on this topic. In Luke chapter 4, he went to the synagogue, he unrolled the scriptures as he was handed them, and he began to read Isaiah chapter 61. "The Spirit of the Lord, the Sovereign Lord, is upon me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor." That was the first thing he chose to read out in his hometown. "Proclaim freedom for prisoners, recovery of sight for the blind, and to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." And if you've never heard the year of the Lord's favour, it's about Jubilee. It's about making sure that people didn't become slaves to debt and trapped and enslaved by debt. But anyway, this was the scripture that Jesus chose to inaugurate his mission into the world. Isn't that fascinating? How many of us would really predict that that would be what he would come up with, unless it was there? Loving the poor is absolutely foundational to what Jesus did and does in the world by his Spirit. And yes, we can read Isaiah 61 through the lens of the cross, that we are being set free from the bondage of our slavery to sin, and we should. But it would be a great mistake to purely spiritualize everything Jesus said, because he actually did spend so much of his time and his life with those who'd been pushed out to the edges of the cities and the towns, where people had just been left out in the cold to figure things out for themselves. And most of us will be familiar with the Sermon on the Mount, probably Jesus' most famous speech, where he stood like Moses on the mountainside and gave us these amazing pictures and glimpses into the kingdom life. And that's where we hear the Beatitudes for the first time. And in Luke's version it says, "Blessed are you who are poor." And in Matthew's version, Matthew's recounting, it says, "Blessed or blessed are the poor in spirit," which is interesting, isn't it? Because those of us who are not poor, it's a bit more comfortable to say, well, yeah, I'm poor in spirit sometimes. We're all poor in spirit, aren't we, in different ways? It's easy just to kind of go there. I just want to notice a couple of things. Jesus expected those who were following him to be poor. That was really the context. Those are the people that he was talking to. Which is funny, isn't it? Because most of us aren't. So what do we do with that? And secondly, talking about the poor, quote unquote, makes us feel very uncomfortable, doesn't it? I know, for me it does. Claudia, my wife, spent a year with Jackie Pullinger in Hong Kong, where they talk a lot about loving the poor, and I remember feeling a bit funny about, the way that she spoke about things and trying to sort of subtly prod Claudia around her language, and it will come as no shock to you to hear that I lost that argument. But in us there is this feeling of, well, aren't we just all the same? Why do we have to use labels which can be so unhelpful and can maybe even stigmatize people unhelpfully? And I think there's some merit in that. But I suppose there's also a very simple response, which is no, we aren't all the same. We aren't born into a level playing field. And yes, it is far too easy to just simply label people. You're an addict, you have a chaotic lifestyle. The reality is, and this is really important, is beneath the surface, we are all very broken. We all have temptations. We all have this kind of displaced brokenness that either came into our lives early or later on, that affects our relationships. It affects the relationships we have with stuff, what we consume, how we cope with difficulty and stress in life. It's just the way that some people cope and react seems easier to point out sometimes, doesn't it? And that's not very fair. But in the Greek there are two different words we translate as poor. There is the just day-to-day struggling to make ends meet, which is something, I don't really know how to pronounce this at all, but something like penes. But the word here in Luke refers to the grinding poverty of the poorest of the poor. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce that one. John can fit that into his notes around my talk. But that's the word who Luke chooses to say that Jesus is saying the kingdom of God belongs to them, to those people who are ground down by poverty, while those who are rich have already had their reward, Jesus says. So Jesus makes a distinction. He doesn't just say, oh, we're all in this together. He says, blessed are the poor and woe to the rich. So if Jesus makes a distinction, maybe we can too, and maybe there'll be something in there to help us. Great. So how can we make sure that our churches resemble the kingdom of God? The church I used to belong to was in the city centre, brilliant place, very welcoming place, and we had all sorts of different people turn up week in, week out, and everyone was welcome. But here's the thing, it was never their church. They were always our guests. And like John, Craig, and I and others from our church are really quite involved in the local prison, running alphas, leading Sunday services, visiting, and other things. And sometimes when the guys come to faith in prison, which is amazing, or like the prodigal son, they come to their senses and they want to make a fresh start with God. They get out of prison, they want to go to church, but basically all our churches are so middle class, aren't they, that they feel this pressure to become like everyone else or just quit. You know, they feel like they have to learn the Christianese language, which is complex and layered. They feel like they have to sort of buy a pair of chinos and boat shoes. And, you know, I'm sure you guys will agree with me. I just don't really think that's right. Nobody would ever say that people need to learn anything, but really, to say yes to Jesus, we shouldn't have to check any other boxes, should we? Saying yes to Jesus should always be enough in itself, and the way that we create community should encourage just that simplicity of faith. And I guess here in Stenhouse, you guys in Bears Den, that's what we're all trying to figure out. How can church become a place for everyone to meet Jesus? And we have a Connect group, meets every Wednesday, sort of come rain or shine, for those who are in recovery or who may be coming out of prison. And it's just brilliant because, you know, technically I'm responsible, but I think I've spoken there maybe about, I don't know, a handful of times in the past 2 or 3 years, because it's not my group that I'm hosting and they're the guests, it's their group, it's their church, and they get to minister to one another and to me, and I get to receive. And from one Baptist church to another, I want to just share 3 brief things that we're learning, all beginning with the letter P, because to not do that would be sinful. And I'm just going to sort of crack on with these. The first P, is proximity. And not that we've got it all right by any means. You know, we've made so many mistakes and are continuing to make lots of mistakes. But the first thing that we did when we started in Stenhouse was to move in. We bought a flat here. We're in a position to be able to do that. And, you know, the Message version of John chapter 1 says, "The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighbourhood." God's love for the world was incarnational through his Son, and our approach should be the same. And you know, we can go somewhere and serve, we can volunteer at food bank, do a shift at the homeless shelter, all really amazing things, but it is just totally different when you live together. It's not us and them anymore. It's a bit more like just us. We have the same issues. You have the dog poo, you have the youth crime. You know, I'm part of the local community council and have been for the last few years, and between you and me, it's not the highlight of my life. I sometimes have to miss my football game to join the community council, and it's tough. But you've just got to show up, don't you, sometimes, and show people in the forgotten places like Stenhouse. You know, I'd lived in Edinburgh for 12 years before I'd even heard of this place, and just embody the love of God in these little ways that are way more significant than we realise. Proximity isn't easy. Before the pandemic hit, we had a busy youth club, all sort of excited 11 to 13-year-olds from non-church backgrounds, by far and above the best thing that we've done so far, but as equally the hardest thing that we've done too. Behavioural issues, vandalising the property, fighting, phoning police, just the usual stuff. This is all very well on one hand, except when you get home you kind of hope that you'll jump in the car and, I don't know, have a bath and cook something nice. You know, you can't really do that when the young people literally live in the same stairwell as you, or scratch your car or egg other youth leaders' windows after youth group. You know, it can be hard, and you have to have that sense of calling behind it all to know why you want to get into proximity in these places. And I believe as numbers dwindle in churches and culture continues to shift, that comfortable Christianity is going to become a thing of the past. We're all going to have to decide whether we want to be missionaries or not. And one of the best ways to be missionary is proximity to the poor. It's going to be at the heart of a lot of our missionary calls. And maybe we think to ourselves, oh, I could never do that. And we congratulate those who do, and we make them into heroes and, buy their books or whatever and go and hear them speak. But I think this call is for each of us in different ways. Think, well, obviously I could never move. And sometimes the question is, well, why not? Is the story that I'm telling myself about my life and what I can and can't do, is it completely 100% true? Do we have to maintain the same lifestyles forever? When we grapple with this stuff, I do believe that we will find greater freedom for ourselves. Often we think that we own our stuff and we make the decisions, but quite often, we know this. It can end up dictating our choices for us as well. So what's your proximity to others like? Is it a monthly coffee, or is it life together in community? Jesus gave us this challenge. I don't know how many times I've ever heard it preached on. Luke chapter 14, Jesus said this to his host. When you give a lunch or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or relatives or your rich neighbours. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they can't repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So I'll just leave it to Jesus to give us the most challenging words. He spent his life in proximity to those on the margins. The second P is powerlessness. And it's one thing being proximate to those on the margins, but who are you when you actually show up in community? And it's a tricky one, this, because a lot of us have got great vision for transformation in communities, and God has given us that vision, creativity, inspiration. So if that's you, run with it, go for it, set up that project, change the system, change the world. But I think it's important to say that's not the only mode that we can serve people in. In fact, a lot of us need to unlearn this need to be the helper and helping people all the time. And that might sound like an odd thing to say, but hear me out. No idea why that just music came on, but it did. Hear me out. We've got to ask ourselves, what are we trying to do? Are we a service provider, or are we just called to be friends, to create extended family? And I love Psalm 68, which says, God sets the lonely in families. The difference between these two things is that friends know how to accept help. Friends share their fears. Friends open up their lives. It's not just a one-way channel of help. If we're the only ones who make the food, organise the time we spend together, buy the coffee, it might make us sort of feel good, but it doesn't create this dynamic of dignity and of shared power. The best thing that we can do often, if we want to create meaningful relationships, is to lay down our power. And this isn't just some kind of sneaky strategy or a false facade. This is actually godly wisdom. This is opening up our hearts to receive and be changed. The blessings out there from people who've had different backgrounds, different upbringings and lifestyles to us are innumerable. And it would be so silly for us to write them off. And that has been our story for the last couple of years. Instead of thinking just about the problems that we can maybe solve, we've tried to think, where is God blessing us through others in Stenhouse? How can we work in partnership with what God is already doing, with what's already happening here? And how can we make sure that there's dignity in every relationship that we foster? If we can lay down our pride and learn that we don't always need to hold the power, we can learn to be vulnerable, then that will open the floodgates for real growth and discipleship to take place, I think. And yes, the caveat is boundaries are important and necessary, but I guess that's not really our focus right now here today. I think we need to ask ourselves, well, why do I feel the need to be the one giving out the whole time? What's with that? What's going on in me there? Philippians 2 says very clearly, doesn't it? It says, Philippians 2 verse 5, and maybe we'll get this on the screen, I'm not sure how it works. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. So powerlessness, proximity, and the third thing is purpose. So where have you been called? Who have you been called to serve, to get alongside, to enter into community with? The likelihood is you've not been called to everyone, everywhere, all of the time. Jesus wasn't, so it's unlikely that we are. In John 17, Jesus prays to his Father in heaven, I've brought you glory on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do. So even Jesus had limits and clarity on the work that was for him to do. What is the work that God has brought you to do? For us, we feel very clearly that we've been called to Stenhouse and to work with those who are coming in and out of prison. And of course we're not militant about this, but when somebody says, oh, can you be involved in something in Leith or Glasgow, we say, well, no, not really. It's just not really what we feel called to at the moment. When people come out of prison and need a hand, we make it a priority. It's so important that we say yes to what God has called us to do, so that we can then say no to things outside that purpose. And I guess that's when discernment comes and kicks in, isn't it? Every disciple needs to learn to listen out for the voice of the shepherd, not just whoever shouts loudest or is most persuasive. And so what's our motivation? Is it people pleasing? Are we starting from a place of guilt or trying to earn approval from God? We know that that's not going to really bring fruit that lasts. And Jesus says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And actually that kind of brings us full circle. That's in the same chapter that we began in today, Matthew 11. And I don't think that verse is just for when we're feeling a bit tired, or we need something to put on a fridge magnet, or we sense that the congregation's knackered. The missionary call and the call to love and serve those who are poor, those on the margins, isn't just for the activists, isn't just for those in their 20s for a few years before they get a mortgage. We want to be in this for the long haul, don't we? And we have to make it work. And so we have to learn to spend time with the Father, to start from a place of rest and grace and being unconditionally loved children ourselves. Anything other than that, and things will get messy. We'll simply just be transferring over our brokenness and our hurt and our busyness and our burnout onto others, and that's not going to help anybody. So, my friends, proximity. Where is God calling you into deeper community with those on the edge? Powerlessness. Where do we need to learn just to receive from others and stop trying to help all the time? Because that can be a real gift. And purpose. Remembering that we are not called to save the world. That Jesus has already done that. But simply to partner with God in grace. And to lay our own lives down so that the Holy Spirit can lift it up again and propel us out into mission. And so, I know that so many of us will be actively busy giving our lives to this stuff already, so well done. God just sees your heart and what you've done. And for others of us, maybe we're just at the beginning of that journey, and it's just about saying yes and just taking the next step as we follow Jesus into whatever he has for us. I'm just going to pray just a short blessing as we close. God, we just invite your Holy Spirit to minister to each one of us now as we reflect on your words, on your challenge, but also your comfort, and that prayer that you prayed to your Father Jesus, that you knew the work that you were called to do, and you obviously completed it by going to the cross, and you were raised again on the third day, and everything we do is in response to that amazing grace. Thank you that there's nothing we can do to earn your love, because you've given it to us abundantly. And so, Lord, show us the way, lead us in your path, and I pray that we would have the courage to begin to lay down even things that we hold really dear, so that you can raise up our lives and just lead us on this adventure into whatever you have for us. We thank you, Lord, for your grace, and we bless your amazing holy name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thousand stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide, because you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still as you call me, deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us.
Well, thank you, Peter, for that final song there, Good, Good Father, which again is a new one you've just produced. And we had the blessing of Sabina and Sarah with the song that they brought in the middle of our service. So thank you for all the musicians and all these fresh and lovely new songs that they're bringing to us. Do remember that you can connect with the prayer ministry team by emailing them at prayerministry@bearsdenbaptistchurch.com, and they will connect with you to arrange to pray for you. Tonight, there's another contemplative service which John Burns is bringing on YouTube. That's going to be at 7 o'clock. It will live stream at that point. And later on at 9:30, Jim Ewing is going to be starting something new called Twitter Church. That's going to be happening on his own Zoom account. And if you'd like to pray for him, he would really value your prayers. If you'd like to be part of that, and he would explain what it's all about, really kind of trying to draw in people he's connected with on Twitter, then do give him a call. Next week, we return to Acts 17, 1-15, and it's all about a tale of two cities. And the cities concerned are Thessalonica and Berea. So come back to hear about those two cities in Acts 17. For now, though, I'm going to leave you once again with that lovely blessing that Jean shared first a couple of weeks ago. So farewell from me, and over to Jean.
Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace forever. The